building Power Apps in 2026 is more confusing than ever. There's so many options to choose from. Where do you start? In today's video, we're going to go through all of the options and help you make that decision. So let's dive in. Charles.
Yeah, so there is a problem, isn't there, today, which is if you look at things a year ago, the situation was that there were two choices. It's basically Canvas apps or model-driven apps. And then we have 5 options today. Although it's not even 5 options, it's even more complicated than that. Josh, can you just give us a kind of overview as to the spectrum at the moment?
Yeah, so a lot of this is really dependent on licensing, which we'll get into. But in a kind of high level sense, we've got a number of options that we've just talked about there. So at the no code side of things, we've got things like App Builder and Vibe apps taking the stage. Then we've got the Canvas apps and model driven apps side of things, which we've all been familiar with. And then we're moving into the pro code side of things, where we've got the new kid on the block with code apps. And then we've got things like custom web applications, which aren't even Power Apps at all, but may still be a contender depending on what you're looking to build. And then outside of that, we've then also got Copilot Studio if you want a conversational AI agent, and Power Pages as well if you want external users to be able to use Dataverse. So my head just gets frazzled talking about it. There's so much to consider. So where do we go from here?
So we need to break it down and look at each individual part very briefly and understand what they can do and what's the impact of each one. So we'll start from the beginning. We'll start from the kind of easiest end, which is the lowest code. This is all natural language at this stage. And we've got App Builder. So Josh, what's App Builder? What can we do with it?
Yeah, App Builder is a no-code tool where we would use natural language to build a very simple app. It generates a React app behind the scenes, but someone who would create this app wouldn't even see any of that. It connects to SharePoint. It only uses SharePoint less, so no integration into the Power App side of things. It uses the M365 Copilot license to create the app. So really straightforward, really simple, best for those really straightforward use cases.
Mm-hmm. And I'll give the caveats here, which is that it's currently Frontier. So it means that you need to be in a Frontier tenant, have Frontier enabled in order to use it. You have to have an M365 Copilot license. It's only available in US tenants, I think, at the moment, but that might have changed. Things are changing so quickly. It's English only as well. So it's experimental. It's something that you can play around with, but you don't want to use it in production yet. So that's that with that one. Now, let's move on to Vibe apps. So, Josh, with Vibe apps, what would you say about this one?
Yeah, it's a fairly similar experience to the agent apps, isn't it? That you can only use it using natural language. The difference here, though, is it's actually within the Power App side. So it uses Dataverse to store the data. It builds a React app, and it uses 3 different agents to build the app for you. So if you use Plan Designer, it's effectively an evolution of that, where it's gathering all the requirements based off of your natural language input, and then it's going and creating the Dataverse structure and schema for you. It's actually generating the Vibe app for you as well. A really interesting concept. We've talked about limitations of Vibe apps in our talks in person and previously on this channel, but it does show a lot of promise. And yeah, again, with this one, it's in public preview, so it's not GA yet, and you have to be in a US preview tenant to actually try it. So not ready for prime time, but it's showing a little bit of promise, I would say.
Yeah, it's like the next level up from App Builder, isn't it? An App Builder uses GPT-5, Vibe uses Opus 4.5, so it uses a better model. So generally, you're going to get a better generation from it. So I see this as kind of being like almost like a Canvas app replacement in a sense. But this is in its infancy, of course, so it's nowhere near being a Canvas app replacement at the moment, but there's huge potential for it. So let's do a versus situation. Let's have a fight between the two. So where would you use each one and how do they compare?
The licensing is going to be the main deciding factor here, depending on the license that you've got. If you don't have a Power Apps premium license, immediately the Vibe apps are off the plate, really. It's then going to look at App Builder if you've got M365 Copilot license. So look at your licenses, which one you've got, and then go from there. If you've got both, then it becomes a bit more interesting. You might want to look at your data, SharePoint versus Dataverse, that age-old debate as to what data source you should use. In my opinion, I think yours as well, Charles, SharePoint isn't a good data source for particularly things like personal information, sensitive information. That's what Dataverse is for. It's an enterprise storage mechanism, which includes a lot of other things as part of that package that SharePoint just simply can't do. The use case being the last probably one that is of note, which is, are you wanting or are you needing something fairly simple, in which case App Builder probably wins out. But if you want to something more line of business, more team productivity or beyond, then Vibe App's probably going to be the app that wins out on that.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to think about with this is because SharePoint lists are not very good for related data, are they? So if I'm creating something that needs relational data, then maybe the SharePoint list side is not really the best way. SharePoint's good if I want, say, just one table, one list. Whereas if I've got something where it's related data, then the Vibe Apps is going to win every time. So Canvas apps. So we know a lot about this. We don't really need to spend too much time on this. The places where Canvas apps are good are or where it can win over others is where it's got the ability to use all of the connectors, where you don't need to pay extra for a license if you're using standard connectors. If you want it to be surfaced in the mobile app, Canvas apps is the way to do that. And then also with SharePoint forms. So if we're wanting to customize a SharePoint form. So Canvas apps has a lot to offer from that perspective. The negative side is that it's still at the moment very difficult to build Canvas apps. It's easy to get started, but once you get into it, delegation's complex, responsive designs are really difficult at the moment still. Maintenance is very time consuming once you've got a decent sized app, and performance is really tricky. And even by default, a Canvas app, when it loads, it's going to take a second or two to get up and running. Whereas with pure code, you get up and running within milliseconds. So there's a big difference there.
And the other thing to add to that as well is, Canvas apps are, like we've mentioned there, they're the workhorse. They've been embedded in organizations for years now. So it's what a lot of people know and what a lot of applications have been built on. So they're not going away anytime soon. A lot of people speculate that, but they're not going away.
Who speculated that?
Exactly.
Let's swiftly move on.
Yeah. Let's move on. Move on to its sibling, if you will, model-driven apps, right? Which is the inverse of Canvas apps, which is that data-driven view. Again, very mature at this point. Dynamics is built on the model-driven app experience and interface. A lot of developers and Power Platform makers will be familiar with model-driven apps. You don't build the UI, it's built for you. But there's some nice new features coming in here, isn't there? Like the AI agent feeds, generative pages, all of that. So they're still getting a lot of love and they're still very heavily used in the Dynamics world. So again, not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, this is like the enterprise beast, isn't it, of apps? So you mentioned generative pages. So that's something where it's kind of like the app builder experience or the Vibe experience, where you talk to it and you ask it to generate something based on natural language. You can attach an image to it if you want it to use that as a guide, and then it will generate a page for you. But one of the things that I absolutely love about generative pages is that they've allowed us to edit the code. So it means that we can open it up in VS Code and we can use an agent of our choosing. So we could use Opus 4.6, one of the really strong agents, and we can modify the code and then we can send it back into that model-driven app. So I think this is a really cool experience. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. As someone who's been an advocate of custom pages for the longest time, to be able to kind of give a bit more flexibility in UI and UX and model-driven apps, this is the evolution of that. And it's a great way if you feel like there's a limitation within model-driven apps, this is the way to take it to give that bespokeness in your app. So yeah, it's a really promising feature that I look forward to seeing more investment in.
And one of the other things that has become confusing from Microsoft's positioning is when things are being released and what release tagging they're getting. It used to be that you'd look at things as like, this is experimental, this is in preview, and this is generally available. But we've got something like generative pages where Microsoft have said it's generally available, but it's US only. So it gets really confusing. So that basically just means that it's ready for prime time, it's ready to be used in production, but they don't have the servers deployed worldwide to cope with the AI demand for generating those pages, but is going to be available worldwide from April. I mean, it's not necessarily guaranteed to be ready in April, but I think in the release plan, they said something like April to September or some April to June. But yeah, essentially generative pages will be ready for prime time very soon, if not already. So On to our favorite, Josh, or maybe our favorite.
It's definitely our favorite. If our viewers seen our recent videos, we talk about this a lot. So Code Apps is the gloves off capability that's come through recently. Pro dev platform, complete control, built using whatever JavaScript framework you'd like, access to all of the connectors within Power Platform, your governance and security that you know and love there, ready to go. Yeah, it's really good. And when you pair it with AI development tools like Opus, like Codex, it becomes really, really promising because you don't need to know code to build the code apps. It's really interesting. So, yeah, downsides being that you require a license for it. However, that might get offset by the fact that you can actually build apps really, really quickly using this method, which I find really compelling.
Yeah, absolutely. And the limitations that we've listed there, things like you can't put it into the mobile app, the Power Apps mobile app at the moment. You can't use fetch XML, and it's got some limitations with Dataverse relationships and uploading and downloading of files via Dataverse and SharePoint, those kinds of things. It does have quite a few limitations, but those limitations are often you can get around them. And also, they're being addressed imminently. Like we've already seen some of them being addressed this year. It went generally available last month. So things are progressing so quickly that Code Apps is really a great option for people. So now on to Power Pages, which is not necessarily within Power Apps, but it's still an option to consider, because what happens if you do want your data to be surfaced externally? And I guess the other thing that I should mention right now is that when you're building a solution, when you're building something for a business process, you're not necessarily going to build just one app. You might have a model-driven app, like it says there, the powerful pattern, a model-driven app and a Power Pages website for different users, for different use cases, but using the same data. So Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, agreed. So Power Pages is a really powerful platform, right, to allow external access. Again, there's a lot of investment in this area. We've seen more AI-driven development methods coming through Works with the ability to generate things like single-page applications now. And yeah, there's still a really compelling use case for Power Pages, especially if you want to tie into something like a model-driven app. If you're creating a system where your end users who are external need to submit information, and then back office staff will then, manage that via a model-driven app. It's a great way to do it. And again, you're getting all of the benefits of Power Platform brings with the governance and the security.
Yeah, and it's very similar to a code app now in the sense that you can bring your own code, like you said, with the single page application. Microsoft have released an agent plugin, and with the agent plugin, you can essentially just chat with it and it will generate a Power Pages website. So it feels like the whole world has been opened up for Power Pages recently, and I'm very excited by that. So, yeah, I guess the next thing is a really funny question, actually, which is like, do you even need an app, Josh?
So we've went through all the options there that kind of exist at a high level. But yeah, the question stands, is an app even needed in today's AI age? And that's where the considerations come in, isn't it? Where if you're just needing to converse or ask something in natural language, then an agent using something like Copilot Studio is probably going to win outright, because the Copilot Studio agent is conversational. You can trigger it by a question or an event. So it can handle automated processes. And you don't need to have all of that development overhead, or as much development overhead as you maybe do with an app, for example. But with an app, you're going to get the form experience, the experience that everyone knows about and knows, if you need to do data input, if you need to do branding, all of that stuff's there in an app. Yeah, it's a really important question to ask, and it's one you should probably lead with when trying to figure out what it is you're trying to do.
Flip side to all of this, of course, is that you might not even need to choose. I mean, you could actually have multiple. You could have agents and apps and a combination of everything. So it's never as simple as just choosing one thing, is it?
No, it's not. And this is where the Power Platform is great, is everything plays so well and so nicely together in that, yeah, we've got a model driven app, but we need to add some conversational elements to it. Well, we can just plug in a Copilot Studio agent and do what we need to do there. And okay, we've got a code app and we need to have some Copilot Studio capabilities embedded into it. Again, that's now possible as well. So lots of different options. Everything plays well together by and large. Some exceptions here and there, obviously, but yeah, it's an exciting time to be able to kind of combine all of this stuff together.
It is. And like, it is a confusing situation. So hopefully these slides and what we've talked about will help to make that decision a bit easier. One of the things that we get asked a lot is, well, now that I can bring my own code to code apps and to Power Pages, like, why would I even bother with that? Like, should I use Power Apps or should I use like a custom web app? Should I build a custom web app? And what we're going to show on this slide is really about like why you might want to use Power Apps, but it doesn't necessarily mean you definitely have to go that route. And it also doesn't mean that you have to do just a Power App. You might even have a Power App and a custom web app. But basically, yeah, what's involved? So you've got governance and control that's already built into Power Platform. You've got security and compliance that's already built into something using something like a code app or a Power Pages website. You're already connected to the data, so you're already within your tenant. For the infrastructure for Power Platform, you don't have to do anything for Power Apps. The infrastructure is just there for you. Whereas if you're going the custom web route, then yeah, maybe you need to work on hosting, scaling, uptime, indexing on your database and things like that. And then for the cost, I think cost is a really interesting one. And Josh and I will go into this in more detail in the future. We're even doing a talk on it, which it just in a nutshell, if you invest in Power Apps Premium, then you can have as many code apps, model-driven apps, etc., as you want, and you don't have to pay extra. If you're going the custom web app route, for every web app that you build is going to have its own unique investment. It's going to have recurring costs based on how it's used, how it's deployed, that kind of thing. And then in favor of custom web apps is that the customization is unlimited. So within Power Platform, it's Microsoft's platform. We have to do everything within their limits. If we go the custom web app route, well, we can deploy it anywhere. We can deploy it to AWS. We can deploy it to Cloudflare. We've got loads of different options. We can even deploy it locally in our own office building if that's the way we want to go. So yeah, lots of options there. Anything to add?
Yeah, I think the argument for Power Apps, in my opinion, is definitely around the platform, isn't it? The platform capabilities makes it more of a compelling option. At at first glance, it is very expensive, to go down the Power Apps route. But when you start considering all of those points that we've listed here, it starts to actually make more sense in that, well, it's not bad because we're getting the governance, we're getting the authentication, all of that baked in. And yes, it probably would be cheaper a custom web app to begin with, but when you start scaling that to the same level of users, you'll probably find that the costs are either greater or fairly on par with the Power Platform side of things. So yeah, it's always an interesting conversation to have, particularly with people who are more in favor of custom web apps.
Yeah, and one of the things that we get told about is that with a Canvas app, if I use standard connectors, it's free within my license. So why would I pay extra for Power Apps Premium? And yeah, that's an interesting one. So that's for another a day. We'll give that discussion. But the thing to bear in mind is like, what license do you have and where do you need to pay? So for M365, as I said, you get Canvas apps included. For Microsoft Copilot, you get App Builder and Agent Builder. So that's a cost in its own right. But of course, with Microsoft 365 Copilot, you're not just getting those, you get loads of other things as well. And then if we go down the premium route, well, you get premium connectors within a Canvas app, you get model-driven apps, you get code apps, and you get vibe apps. You get quite a lot for that. And then for the usage-based, so Copilot Studio, you'll be paying for your credits. If you're using AI Builder as well, you'll be paying for your credits. Power Pages, you're paying for your users, authenticated or unauthenticated. And then with custom web apps, well, it's usage-based usually. You could be paying a monthly fee for everything. But yeah, I mean, the variance within custom web apps is huge.
So yeah, some interesting things there with the licensing. And as we look ahead into the rest of 2026, there's probably a few things we want to keep an eye on in this space that are going to, I think, make those decisions either easier or just a little bit more interesting. things like vibe apps not being generally available yet, that will be coming at some point soon. I think it will be this year, given the speed and pace of AI development in the wider AI sphere and platform. So things like model-driven apps getting a refresh with a new modern look, the classic UI retiring, code apps maturing with the capability for things like mobile, Power Automate workflows, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot to consider and keep an eye on. And there's a few places to do that. Things like the release planner, the release waves, always a good place to keep an eye on those things. And also just general places like LinkedIn as well, always useful for latest updates. So keep an eye on those places and yeah, don't get overwhelmed by it.
Absolutely. And then this is just a quick reference as to the status of everything. So we've got lots of things already generally available, but just bear in mind App Builder is Frontier, Vibe is in preview, Generative Pages is generally available in the US, but will change shortly. And then for a custom web app, well, you need to pay attention to what's available for custom web apps. So if you're using NPM packages, if you're using specific AI tooling that you don't know that much about, they might not give it a label. They might not say that actually this is brand new. It's kind of experimental. It's kind of in preview. You might not know that. So it's a much clearer ecosystem, I would say, with Power Platform and with Power Apps. With custom web apps, it's really where you need to look at like, how mature is this tooling that I'm using? So it's a bit more of a minefield. So that's another thing to bear in mind if you go that route. So Josh, we've basically come to the point of saying like, it used to be Canvas or model driven. Now, what is our question? How do we figure this out?
Yeah, the question's a really nuanced one, isn't it? Because it is no longer canvas model driven. It's more around what combination of licensing, what type of app, what skills do I need to build this? What is the problem I'm trying to solve? There's a lot more questions and decisions that we need to make to try and figure out the best tool for the job. It's not a new concept per se, but with the new technologies filtering down, there's just a lot more to consider. And what we're going to do in our next video is actually walk you through a decision tree to help make that decision as to what app should you use when. And yeah, we're really looking forward to showing that and helping with that decision making process. So do stay tuned for that.
Yeah, that's going to be a really interesting one because, as you say, it's very nuanced. And the other side to it, of course, is the budgetary side, the monetary side, which is one where we're not going to cover it in full detail in our next video. But if you come to the European Power Platform Conference, you can see us do a talk on it where we will give the details that will help you to actually choose, like, should I go the Power Apps Premium route? Should I stay within standard licensing? And all of the nuances around that. So yeah, thanks for watching this video and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please leave any comments if you have them. We're curious to know what you think about this, if you're happy with the direction we're going with the videos. And yeah, see you next time.